But yeah, today's is about DevOps in SAP Cloud Integration. And let's try to get started. So the things we want to cover here is, yes, we need to get a common understanding about what are the different processes that needs to be improved. We want to, I want to share Figaf's take on DevOps. We want to look at testing of integration, some of the different implementation plans, and then we want to have time for some Q&A. But obviously, if you have questions along the way, put them into the Q&A section or put them in here to the chat. So yes, good. Let's get started. So obviously, I think one of the important things is how do you actually use DevOps for cloud integration. And I think in DevOps, when I mean DevOps, it is in the little broader perspective about everything that is going on in that perspective. Alexandra, and not just a specific tool or technique. I think DevOps anyway consider of a lot of ambiguity in this thing. So we have a small poll that we'd like to query and ask what are the biggest challenge that you actually see in this with your SAP integration. Is it about implementing a DevOps process? Is it about improving the developer productivity? Is it about onboarding new developers? Is it monitoring, or is it understanding when you do PI to CPI migration? Hi Sasha and Bruno, thanks for joining. So I need to go to the different tab. It popped up, right? It is running. So yeah, please share what is the most important for you. And we got some things on DevOps processes, productivity, and monitoring of integrations processes. So let's just take 10 seconds more, just so I have an idea about what we need to focus on and what's most important for you to cover in these topics. Cool. So let's just close it. So yeah, I don't know if you will actually be able to see the response or not, but a lot of people said it's implementing of DevOps processes. We had some on monitoring and some on understanding PI to CPI migration. So we did not cover, or let's see if we get time to cover some PI to CPI migration. We obviously have a tool that helps doing that, and we have a lot of resources on our website that gives you an idea about what's going on. But I think actually a lot of things needs to happen before you get into that, and this is about getting to understand and have some good processes to deliver SAP integration. And this is what this webinar is about giving you a good idea about what to deal with or how to deal with it. I think an important thing is obviously your time is important. It's really difficult to find integration developers, and it's really difficult to find really the good integration developers that makes a huge difference. So it makes sense that they spend the time on the things that are most valuable to your company. This is, in my opinion, not about creating documentation, and that's what we would try to give you a way that you can simplify that processing. Okay, obviously if we start with CPI and integration development, some things can be done really quick. And here you see an example of me writing a client, hey, and he asked for a small correction, and in 40 minutes I provide a fix, and I have I've made the fix, transported into production, but I do not have any documentation, I do not have any review, and there's really no testing of this done. I guess for the scenario it could make sense, but I really had a bad taste in my mouth knowing that someone else would actually need to support this. later on. And obviously, this is really not how you should be delivering integration. And if you think this is okay, yeah, by all means. And I guess we have the different poll here about how you're actually handling your transport, because I think that is also an important topic. So how are you handling your transports? Please share that. But yeah, we need some better processes. This is not really an acceptable solution anymore. File import export is not really a good practice, and sorry to the people that that said they did it like that. Oh, will you open the poll? The poll. Yeah. So yeah, and then yeah, governance is important as a project, and for the reason here, I did not have. Yeah, so how do you handle transport? Please put that into the pop-up here. And then yeah, governance, and as you saw in my previous example, there was no governance. And there was no testing done either. I think yeah, we were just fiddling around at that point in time. As a developer, I'd really have loved to have run my tests and have known the only impact that we're doing is these things. And the other day I was also talking with someone using cloud transport management on the CPI tenant, and one of the things they said there was that as they developed it, once they developed integration, they would submit it to a transporter, and then someone from an operations team would transport it. That meant that no one really knew what was being imported. It obviously had the correct timestamp or the correct documentation filled in, but there was really no one that was ensuring that it was done correctly, and you might as well just have improved it. And as I can see here, quite a lot of people are still using file import export, so hopefully by the end of today you would have a better way of doing integration. And I guess also the CTS and Charm one. Hopefully you will also see some of the advantages of this, of the Figaf process compared to handling it with those standard tools, because we can do a lot more than is really possible with those things. So thanks for sharing. I think that was the last poem we had. So one of the things that I do find a little challenging with setting up a DevOps process is you would have two places where you would be developing, and probably the guy that said they were using DevOps can attest to some of this. That you would have two places where you'd be doing development. You'd have the Git branch and you'd have the web ID, and who owns what? How do we actually handle this? You will not have in most cases you probably just have one developer working on one iFlow at the time, and then it can be really challenging as a developer that has. I have not got a gray hair yet, but I have worked a lot with integration, and obviously we're not really used to those kind of advanced tools, so it can be a little challenging to learn how to set up good branching, etc. And then if you are doing any kind of trying to understand what is going on, it also becomes difficult to know what is actually being changed. And especially if you look at iFlow BPM. So SAP has two options for this. So there's some Jenkins pipelines, and there's also Project Piper, where they have created a few examples on how to deal with these things. We've got the Jenkins process working. I was not really super impressed about what was possible there. And I think that is why I think the Figaf tool would be a good way that you can simplify the process and give much more, improve the quality of what you're doing. So let's get to it and now talk about how the Figaf tool would work with DevOps. So we try to make it as simple as possible to manage the integration suite and make transports a lot simpler. So when I talk about integration suites, it's mostly cloud integration, but also API management. We do support both of them, and the processes for handling transports is the same. It should be simple to use and should not require something else to set up. It should enable the power. You should, with the tool, you should be able to handle all the SOX ITIL requirements that you have, and that includes approval and documentation. And I think this is one of the key aspects of why you want something good, because these two requirements is pretty powerful and give a good understanding about why you need to deal with these things. And obviously, we try to handle configuration, testing, monitoring, all of the aspects that you normally would run into in a development process. So what is the Figaf tool? So the Figaf tool is a standalone Java application. You deploy it in Cloud Foundry, connected to a database, and then it connects to your CPI system. In the CPI system can either be in Cloud Foundry or it can be Neo. It really doesn't matter from our perspective. And then we can also connect to the PI system and do the same processes there, and we have a lot of advanced capabilities there, but we'll not go into these things. Just know that it is the same capabilities as we show here, but also for a PI environment. Good. And yeah, you can deploy it in Cloud Foundry here in B2P, but you can also deploy it in your own hyperscaler or in a system on your own on-premise system. So if we talk about the Git process, and this is, I guess, where it becomes a little challenging, and where the way we're working with this. So the way the Figaf tool works is it connects to the CPI system. It downloads all your iFlows, and I've put in plus here because we have added value mappings. And in this release, or the upcoming release, we're also adding script collection and message mappings. So you have all of them in one artifact that makes it a lot easier to manage. Once the Figaf tool have this, it will then push it into a Git repository. And once you're initializing this Git repository, it would add all the different templates, scripts, capabilities that you need to do. So from a developer perspective, you don't need to be an expert Gradle developer to set anything up. It comes with pre-delivered content, so it is simply just plug and play. Then the user, I guess it's on here, would select which screen to do and how to deal with these things. Pull all the changes in, so he'll always be able to get the newest changes. And then you can upload back and forth between the CPI system. So we've delivered a number of Gradle plugins that would allow you to easily up and download here between the systems. So you don't even need to leave your IDE if you're just making updates in the Groovy script. And that is, I guess, one of the challenges. So our normal way is that the user would seldom commit. You would commit if you're making changes in test cases, but generally the user will just let the process run back into the Git repository. So you'd synchronize once you're done with the development, and then other users would be able to see all the iFlows in the Git repository. And yeah, the synchronization can be scheduled every hour or once a night, depending on what your requirement is. Then we'll come into the transport capability, and here we're talking about that it is able to manage the transport, it is able to handle the testing. Once you're approving, you've got full visibility about what you're actually approving. We have APIs that enable you to invoke the transport, so if you have other tools like Jira or ServiceNow, they can trigger the Figaf tool to do certain actions. And then we can configure iFlow and create all the documentations that we needed for it. So let's see how many of these things I would remember once we're going through the demo. If there's things that you're missing, do ask that. I think that covers all. We do have a visual BPMN diagram that shows you where some differences are. And I think this is really useful if you are making modifications to a process to know where something has changed, because otherwise it becomes really painful to see what is going on. We have what we call binary landscapes, and this is where we can transport from development to QA. We can develop a new release, and with this give you a much more flexible transport process, because we want to be able to support bigger projects where you need to make sure that you have completed testing in QA before you move to production. So these transport changes are all making a lot of sense in conjunction with each other, so you can see what's going on and who have approved which changes, etc. And then obviously once you go into production, the tool can also handle configuration changes. So if you want to configure an iFlow a little differently, you can just use the tool to handle the configuration, and then that simplifies process that you do not need developer access. And I think that is one of the key criteria, that developers should not have access to your productive system, period. One of the other things is virtual landscape, and I saw this as at a client site. What they had actually used was they had used the dev tenant both for dev and QA, so they had fixed all the dev objects and all the Q objects with dev and QA, and that meant that every time they're doing transport or new versions, they needed to transport between these two things. In our newest release, we have added a lot of capabilities that actually allow you to reuse the same system and create just a regular transport between these two systems, so you do not really need to do any things. It is just saying this package is being transported here, do not touch it or do anything with it. And this really simplifies the transport process, because everything is included in one box here. I talked a little about here, we now support script objects, and with that we synchronize and keep version of them, have transport the same way. And I think one of the key aspects of this is, after SAP have made script collections global accessible, we now have an option to actually search for these different artifacts and show which iFlows is actually using a specific artifact. And this is one of the things that also simplifies some of the processing. And then, they can obviously be transported as with the other things. I think that was, let's try with that and see how that demo would go. Question along the way, then let's have those. So now let's do the demo. So here we have the Figaf tool. As I said, it's a standalone Java application. It has connected to my CPI system. And what I will then be able to do is, I just made a change in one of our iFlows, and we can see here we got the new script collection here. And if I look at this iFlow here, I can check the versions, and when I look at versions, I have option to do comparison of different things. So we can obviously look at the visual diagram here and find out what is different here, and there's something in here where we have changed a value. This makes it really simple to understand what is going on. We also have an option here to use diff to HTML that will show you which part of the code has changed, so you can see an XSLT or Groovy script change have been made, and this is one of the things that makes it a lot easier for you to manage the integrations. And yeah, we can also compare across the landscape and see if one of these things is different in our QA system. But the idea is that we will select our object here and we will assign it to a ticket. Let's see if I have so we'll just use the time of this webinar. To handle these things, we can select a landscape, and right now I'll just select this dev to QA system. I can add a Jira number, ServiceNow incident, etc. to simplify linking between this, because as you can see here behind it, all of these links to existing tickets, that means I actually know I can go back to them and find out why a change was made and find the relevant Jira or ServiceNow incident, and that makes a lot of differences and makes it a lot easier. Now I can update attach all the dependent objects, so I can see all the objects that depends on this. And if we look at one of the things here was the script collection here, or this is the script, we can see it's part of the script collection, and we can see that this script collection is using these is used in these iFlows. So with this we have a lot of information about what is actually going on in our iFlow and where these are actually used, and we can check the versions. We don't want to do that. What is being changed here, and we can see which tickets. So it does a lot of navigation between these things to make it easier to go from one object to another. We would look up which test cases we have for this, and we have one here. Obviously you would always have all of the test cases available and should be run, but to simplify it and not spend too much time on it, we just have one test case that we select and run here. And the way we're testing in a CPI world is to use the trace mode, and with this we have an option to switch an iFlow into trace mode, send messages through it, and then we can compare the result of this. So let's see the result. And here we have the testing results, and we can see that there is some unexpected payloads that we received, and this is if we have changed the BPMN model since we did the processing. And I think I did add a new step into it before this running, but as you can see, it is adding these artifacts as we go. Yeah. So normally it goes a little quicker here. I don't know what's going on now, if there's any problems with it. But yeah, yeah, a little strange. Yeah, normally it will take like 20-40 seconds for this test case to run. Okay, maybe we'll finish later. We'll check a look at that later. So once we have tested it and we've seen it's okay, we can start the transport. And what we can do now is we can open the transport. We can see here the transport, and it contains the package, it contains the iFlow, and for the iFlow we have option here to configure artifacts. So we can see here that the P host has been search replace, so we have global search replace, and this really simplifies some of the processing. And I guess I just need to move a little down so maybe you can see it. We have an API key that we are specifying in here. So once you're doing the configuration, you have a lot of flexibility to define these keys and understand what they need to be. And for host names, that you always replace with the same in the same environment, or from dev to queue, we have a place where you define all of these globally. So once you're transporting, it becomes a lot easier. we can see if there's any changes, etc. So you need to go down again. So now we want to say, okay, now as a developer, I've finished all of this, and we can see here that I'll also add the script collection. I can send it to approval, and obviously normally you should not approve your own transports, but for the sake of the demo, I can also approve my own transports. And when I'm approving, I can look here and I can compare the BPMN models to show what is actually the difference that are going on here. So I can see that there was a difference in this specific artifact. And this makes it a lot easier for me to manage and approve what is going on. I can look at the configurations to show are there anything that are different between these two ones. And if I had message mappings, I would also be able to see those in here. I can approve it. And now I can import it. So with this, it will go into the QA system. It will perform the import, and then it will configure it, and then it will deploy it, and then it will log all the things we have internally here, so we know if everything is working out successfully. And now we have process organization, which would link everything together and make it easier to understand what is going on here. So all transport objects successfully. We can see we got all of these objects linked. We can see here that it renamed the QA, and this was the virtual landscape I talked about, that it can add these pre and post fixes to your objects to make it easier for you to understand where some things is going on, what is being changed in these artifacts. We have rollback if it did not work successfully, and then as I said here, you can then create a transport from with the same name, from dev or from this virtual QA system to production, and this will happen the same way and do the same steps as we did before. And these items would then be linked together, so you can see which other items that we had as a part of this. So that was a little about the transport processing, what it is able to do, how to create these transports. And as you can see up here, we also have just configuration only if you just want to configure transport configurations. Good. Yes. Yeah, let's just start the transport. And I'm not sure here, you can obviously define different approvers for the different landscape and then just approve and import it. Good. We will not wait for that one to finish. Cool. So here I showed you the full flow of a transport, handling it, and then if we want to see the documentation that has been created by this, we can look at, for instance, this one here. The testing result, let's see here. We'll set this to result, and then we can create a report that shows us everything that is going on with this iFlow. All the different changes that have happened, what are the objects, what was involved in this. So we have an artifact, we have the list of objects that were part of this, which test cases we ran, what were the result of these test cases, and were there any differences, etc. So we can see a lot of details about these things, and then we have the transports and who approved them. So all the things that you need for a good governance is a part of this part here. Good. Let's go back. So, as I said, we also do have a Git repository, and one of the key aspects of this is all the time you will be continuously getting the iFlows there with the newest version, and be able to see all the objects that you have there. So make it as simple for developers to use this tool, handle developments. It comes with all the templates that you need, so it's just a copy paste to get it started and then enter a password. Yeah, and the reason why you want to have this is because the CPI is good for developing iFlows, but as long, or if you want to do more complex iFlow development, it really becomes difficult. And that's where this makes sense, because you can take all the iFlows there, you can have all the Groovy code, and if we connect it with also the test cases, you can take a unit test case, create mock flows for all the iFlow, which means you would actually be able to debug here. And then you can add pipelines to it, and I think this is the one we have here. So I tried to take this, create a Azure action or GitHub action, and see if it was actually possible to run an iFlow with this. And what I can see here is that it ran CPI lint. In this case, it did not produce any errors, but you could also get notification that there was a build error here, which says that the CPI lint did not work successfully and you had some problems with this processing. And this is one of the things that makes it a lot easier for developers to ensuring proper QA code works. So we'll just take the previous one. We also have these Gradle plugins, and with the reason why this is a cool thing is they also come with the templates, and once you have installed these templates, you can, if you click deploy or download, it will actually upload the iFlow into the CPI system, and then you can deploy it all from here. And it also works for script collections, mappings, value mapping. So those things are one of the things that is really easy to edit outside of the tool. And obviously you can also run tests with the Figaf tool here. So the RT plugin would allow you to actually run tests and invoke the Figaf tool from the plugin. So it's a way to make it easier for you to develop SAP integration and iFlows. Cool. Good. I'll not be talking too much about testing, but obviously it should be a part of all your delivery processes. It should be easy for developers to create them, because otherwise, and run them, otherwise it will never be done. And yeah, as a developer, you want to run it. It would obviously not cover everything that you have, but as it should give you a good understanding about what's going on in the iFlow and if it is performing as expected. And then you should also, in a CPI, will be able to mock different services, because otherwise it becomes really difficult to do testing if you cannot mock an endpoint, because then you would otherwise need to figure out how to handle that specific case. And I guess that is what we in the Figaf tool are able to support. We support so the way we're testing is using the trace process, which switches line iFlow into trace mode, record all the messages and validate that they are processed correctly and they look as they did before. And if the developer have updated it or have run the test as a part of change and say, okay, gone through it and accepted, okay, these changes are correct, he can update the test case, and then next time you run it, it will show the same artifacts and the same documentation there. And then, it can be integrated into other platforms, so you can call the Figaf testing tool from other platforms to simplify the end-to-end testing and ensuring the cloud integration is included in your full end-to-end tests. I guess that's mainly part of what I want to say. Yeah, so I guess the main was the unit test. So if you've created this, you can also create unit tests for Groovy that allow you to debug this, and this is not something that requires you're really good with setting up Java mock services, etc. This all comes out of the box. So how do you get started with it? So obviously you need to understand what is the business case. And I usually say this is about saving of time on each transport. And I guess in the word transport can be a little broader perspective depending on your scenario. Is this also including the test governance documentation that you need to approve? And obviously, if you're spending 40 minutes on a transport, it becomes difficult really doing a good business case on it. But then you would probably end up seeing that you really don't have any idea what's going on with your landscape, what's going on with your integrations. So the main way is that the tool will save you money or save time on the transport. And we didn't ask about how many hours you normally spend on the transport, but I think a lot of times it's like 5 to 10 hours that people are saying they would spend on each transport and ensuring governance approval, etc. is in order. And if you can save 50% of that, it's a pretty good business case for just 4 transports. So the Figaf tool starts at 300 euros a month plus some hosting, either in BTP or in your other favorite platforms. But obviously it does support a number of other cases, so it enables you to resolve integrations faster, which significantly adds and improves the business case, because obviously there's a cost to the developer, but there's also cost to the business. There's cost to not being able to handle specific cases. It ensures that you have fewer errors because you have the regression testing capabilities. Training time is a lot easier because there's just one simple tool to handle these things, and it's not a complex scenario to set up. And then you'll get some happier developers because they all have the same way of dealing with the integration. So as you can see, there's a pretty good business case in installing or getting this tool for your organization to save some time there. And obviously you can do this yourself. You can create a pipeline or Bitbucket actions to do these things. Obviously, it is one of the bigger, more challenging things to set up, and I think you need to be really skilled in those processes to set it up correctly. I did find when I was working on this that it is pretty difficult to set up, and it requires a lot of good scripting skills to know what to do and how to set up things and have good processes in it. And then you need to import the Postman and how you're dealing with that. So that is one of the key aspects. I think that the Figaf tool makes some of these things a little easier. General pricing, I guess the 600 euros a month is if you have 40 iFlows, and most is anyway above that, then it's 10,000 euros a year for 3 agents or CPI systems or API management systems. And then for subsequent 100 iFlows, it's 5,000 euros a year. And then if you get more than 500 iFlows, let's talk. But I guess this will give you an idea about where we are. So it is not really expensive in that terms because of all the business value that it will create and the time it will save you on your governance approval processes. It is really not that difficult to get started with it. So normally we suggest that we take a meeting to understand what's going on, set up a session, you do a trial of the tool, or we also had our clients that say, hey, this is like a no-brainer, let's just get started. We've installed the Cloud Foundry on it, rolled it out to the landscape, and then set it up. Obviously, time depends on your scenario or your scope, what you want to achieve, and a lot of customers would use different capabilities of it. Some would just use the testing capabilities, and others would just use the transport capabilities, and then the mixture of those things is also useful to set up. But yeah, we've seen people that have used the productive in less than a month from start to now. So you can get done before Christmas or before summer starts. Yeah. So if you want, we can schedule a call where we can talk with you and your team and figure out how this could work for your scenario, what it is that is your most pressing challenges, and how to deal with these things, how the tool can help, and how suggest a implementation plan about how this would work at your scenario. And you can then go to figaf.com/book, and there should also be a pop-up here that you can see and go to that link by Bruno and see what is going on and what's possible there. So yeah, check that out. If you have some specific questions, you can also just go to the direct to the trial. And as I said, it is pretty easy to get started. We have a number of videos to set it up and configure it with your cloud integration systems running at BTP, and that's like 20 minutes to get started with that. So it is not hours you need to commit to getting started with this. You can go to figaf.com/devops and sign up for it there. Yeah. And now we have time for Q&A. So any questions, do put those into the chat. Or just go to Get DevOps, sign up and get started and see what is possible there. Cool. So yeah, 43 minutes. I hope you saw some useful things in it. Thanks for participating, but now it's time for you to ask all the different questions, because there was a lot of things we did not go through that I think could be important for you, but I want to cover the things that is most interesting for you. So if you have questions, put them into the chat or the Q&A, then we will try to answer them as we go along. Or yeah, I don't know. Can I translate it? No translation. Andrea. Great, thank you. I'll get them. And yeah, if it was the migration, then yeah, check out the migration resources that we have. That's a good place to get started on that. I think you can find it here. So in here in the resource center, we have the migration help center here. That gives you a lot of insights about the different packages and things you need to discuss. But I think the most important part is to understand how you have a good process. And the Figaf tool and transport management is obviously a huge part of this this processing. Yes. I guess another one that we did have was the number said you wanted to look at monitoring integration, and we can take that. So we do. The tool also comes with a number of options to monitor integrations, and this is also included in this DevOps license. So yeah, really easy way to get started with this. So here we have a number of different iFlows or ways to support the integration. The first part is we have an option to fetch all your different rules and alerts that are going on in the system, and thereby tracking these things. So we can see here we're getting some type of an error on I don't know, EPv4. What we can then do here is we can so FTP, I guess, is we can create a tick or create a rule here for this, and that means that next time we are seeing this, we know how to handle it. We can set up different rules processes for this, so we can easily filter these rules and create persistence for this. We can set up a monitoring period for this to understand what is going on. We also have a message monitoring capability, and this gives you an option. I guess I should not go through here. An option to set up the different iflows that you want to have as part of a tile. That means that you can create a tile for custom orders. You can create one for the different iflows or processes to have, and give users access to this on an iflow level. And yes, you can see iflows here. So here we have some of the iflows that we ran. What you can see here is that you can see the persisted payloads here, and we can download this. I guess normally there should be more, so not sure if it just runs differently or something like that. So here we can see persisted messages, and we can obviously view these and see what's going on. And this means that you as a user have a simple way of handling these things. You don't need to figure out how to connect with these things. And business users could also go in here and search for an application ID. So there's a number of different filters for these scenarios that you can use. Was this what you're looking for? Yes. And I think one of the next one will also be to add data store objects into this, so you would have access to all the different artifacts from the monitoring, making it a lot easier to manage what is going on. We also do have one, and this is where you in a CPI iflow can set up certain steps that you want to monitor, and this will then allow you to, let's see here, didn't it run? Didn't we schedule it? All messages. What you have here is you would then be able to see specific messages once they have run, what is actually being processed. And here we can see the different payloads that exist for a given one, and these are then persisted in the Figaf tool. So you can have them for longer duration if you want to have them in that format. And then we can see it is downloading these things, etc. These things are going on. So there's a number of different ways to monitor this, and this is all included in this license. So normally I say we try to solve one problem, or you have one problem, and then we help you resolve the next 3 problems that you will be getting with your SAP integration, because you don't need to consider all of these different scenarios. Other questions? I do hope you like that. Perfect. Yes. Let's see if it is now responding better. Yeah, I don't know what is going on there. Yeah, so maybe no, maybe we've changed some of the endpoints, which means that it would not run successfully towards the end. That could be one of the reasons we did this. So some things we have just worked on improving. Yeah, so definitely we're getting some different things. Is now you will be able to see what are the description, what's happening in these different processes. That's one of the things that are coming out in the coming release. Yeah, this scripting collections and artifacts, so seeing what is going on. Cool. Yep. So thanks for joining. I think that was all I wanted to share, unless you have something else. Let's see. So let's see. I think it's probably because my script collection that I just added was not deployed, and therefore it was not giving, was not working successfully. Yeah, okay, so referred script collection was not available. Yes. So obviously you need to learn with these things, and probably, yeah, so once you're transporting, it should also, or the idea is also that you'll be able to see some of these things. Okay, we can do a little on the migration part. Let me just ensure that I got this script deployed. So one of the things we have improved also in this last release is we have created a migration overview. And this really ties into the full flow about just giving you one process about handling migrations. And here you can see all the different iFlows that you have. ICOs or receiver determination in the CPI world. We then have an option here to click migrate. And then we can create a migrated a new iFlow name for this. We can check if this is possible to do migration, and then it will show the different artifacts that is a part of this. How do we convert migrations or different channels to CPI artifacts? We can preview this migration, what will generate, and then we can migrate. And then we will migrate the iFlow, and you'll be able to see what is going on with the iFlow, etc. All of these different attributes that make sense for this to set up. You have an option here to, so this message mapping, and I think one of the differences we have is message mapping is converted with function libraries, which is really helpful. So if we take a look here, we can see, I think this is the partner number here. So this was a function library in a PI. If it is just using message mapping artifacts, they would also be a part of this. So user-defined functions would be a part here. And we have message parameters that's part of this. Good. So the only thing we needed to do here was to make a modifications to this iFlow, or to the sender part here. Boom. Save as version. And yeah, so we try to simplify the processing, and that means that if you go back here, we can now see we have added a new one, and we do not have any test cases for this. So what we'll do is we will select this. I just need to press synchronize here. So we need to synchronize, get this specific version of the iFlow in here. Auto migrate demo, right? This is the package, and we'll just leave that alone. But what I can do now is I can select here migrate test cases, and we have created test cases on the PI side. And what we can do is just take one of these test cases, migrate it, added to an existing test suite. It knows, because we have migrated with the tool, how to set this up. If you have migrated them manually, you can enter these steps yourself. You can press migrate, and then this would have migrate the test cases. And now we can see here in our webinar thing, we have one test case for it. So we can look at the testing objects here. We can see the agent test case we have here. We can select it and we can run it on our iFlow, and I think we just need to license this. So this is going a little quickly, I know, but I hope this is interesting. So let's see here, run on. So now we can see that the test case should be run. So we created the test case, we have a result over here. It's view results, let's see. So we can see there is some errors here. Let's see, take a look. What are the difference here? And we can see this just that a date is different, because it's current date, and that is okay, so we just say save. And now if I process the comparison here, I will then be able to see some of my computers and process full comparison. Now it will run with this new ignoring aspects, and then we'll most likely see that one of the other one is still diff, and that was because I made a difference in that document. And here we can also see that. So my computer is behaving a little weird. We can either also see binary in here. We can see that there's added a 99 difference here. So then you have the full overview here about what is going on. And once you have moved an iFlow into production, you would actually be able to see it from here that the iFlow has been moved into production and everything works out fine. I hope that was the quick demo that we showed. Other questions? Okay, 2 minutes left. So yes, thanks for joining. Thanks for spending some time with me. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have more questions, I think you have received an email from me you can reply to, and we can set up a scenario or a case, or trying to figure out what is going on and how this tool can help you automate your SAP migrations and development processes. So thanks for watching.